Say, kids, what time is it?
The future is coming on, it's coming on, it's coming on, it's coming.
And here we are colliding with the present once again with you folks live and Mrs. Future live and Bobby and some other dimension. He'll check in soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, we assume he's alive.
Yeah, we assume. He was on Point Lobos yesterday, probably super alive.
Yeah. Well, there's an awful lot of energy. Don't you feel like everybody is super accelerated like now?
Yeah, what's going on?
Well, maybe it's just May flowers, right? Everybody's getting extra pollen, so they feel extra energy.
Yeah.
And it's spring, and everybody's seeds are planted, so they're just watering them and ramping them up, getting them ready to go.
It's true, and I've been sneezing more lately, too. So
Me too. Yeah, a lot more sneezing this year. What's going on?
Well, since we last
welcome to the future now.
We've been busy. We've been in Las Vegas. We checked out this thing called the Sphere.
Yes, we went to the Las Vegas Sphere and saw the Dead and Gone show of the Grateful Dead remains.
Yeah, oh my goodness, that is incredible.
We had an awful lot of fun seeing it. A very beautiful show.
And when you say that's the closest to a holodeck,
dear friend.
yeah, isn't that the closest to a holodeck?
Spheres are definitely big holodecks. You are immersed in them like a little tiny molecule in a big atom. Wait a minute. No, that's the other way around. Molecules are combinations of atoms, not the other way around. So you're a little tiny atom in a big molecule.
I think alchemically, something about being in a sphere makes you feel like you're part of what's in the sphere.
Yeah.
Right? So it creates this connectedness.
Yeah.
Plus, it helps to have the great music
Yeah.
that connects everyone as well.
That was actually, for me, the very best part of it. I was astounded at how good the sound was for such a big arena for people to be taking in a theatrical performance.
Yeah.
The people playing were almost minuscule, out of sight, right? Smaller than a thumbnail as I held my hand up, but they were crystal clear. It was so satisfying to listen to the music. And I've been to other shows where it's not, where you're kind of bothered, like some of the speakers are too loud and other things aren't coming through properly. And this was just great.
It holds 18,000 people.
Oh,
So
and you feel all of those people. There's so many heads on the floor around the stage. You feel like you're in an ocean of humanity.
And you know, it's 16K resolution. Oh. You have a 360 image. It's totally 16K.
Wow, that's bigger than IMAX.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it's the maximum that we have available today. 1,600 speakers, which help a lot.
Oh, that's probably why the sound was so good. But it wasn't deafening. That's the thing, is you expect to be in a big hall like that and it's going to be too loud and you have to bring your earplugs or something. But no, it was perfect, at least where we were. Maybe that was the advantage of having seats so far away from the stage.
Yeah, there's 10,000 vibrating seats also. So they try to get into that for some of the seats there.
Yeah,
Yeah. $2.3 billion, 5 years to make. That's it. It's too freaking expensive. It's great. It's great for what it is. It's too bad there's only one.
Yeah, I'm not going to see any more shows there.
For
and we got the cheap seats.
$185, something like that.
But for us little hipsters, a few $100 for a concert seat just seems outrageous. And even though the show was good, the seats sucked.
Well, where we were. What they didn't tell you is that they have so many people packed into the Sphere that they have balconies. And we were underneath a balcony.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I did not see that we were in I didn't know that they had seats that were occluded, that you couldn't see the ceiling.
That's what I mean by occluded. You're under a balcony.
Yeah, and we had to walk up about 10 seats to see the dome.
Yeah, and it's great. Okay, the good news about that is that even under the balcony seats, you have a super wide, like a 70 millimeter cinemascope quality image.
Yeah.
But the reality is if you were further out, you'd have a 360 degree cinemascope.
Right.
IMAX.
And that is the problem, is that,
image.
Sure, it's wonderful to see a movie screen that's like 4 times the width and 10 times the brightness. But to,
get the whole experience. Because we are used to being in a sphere. Reality is a sphere to all of us.
Yeah.
360 all the time.
Radial projection.
Except when we're watching TV or movies.
Yeah.
But usually it's 360. So for the cinema to embrace that, it's amazing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The 400 section, perfect sight lighting. Okay, that's good news. Thanks, Billy.
Yeah, after the fact doesn't help.
Yeah, well, if you go again.
And we're not going
No,
again.
well, you think cool thing is that
because
okay,
we
here's the
just
thing.
hung out with our friend Sean Ahern.
Yes, that's it.
And the
We just saw him
Wisdom.
on the Kumba Jazz
We
Party
were at the
in the San
in
Lorenzo
Santa Cruz
Park
this weekend.
on Sunday.
Yeah.
And Sean Ahern is one of the great Bay Area organizers putting together events.
He's an event producer.
Including some of the greatest Sea of Dream parties in San Francisco with Joe Bullock. And
he got involved with the last few Health and Harmony festivals. And he's got a nice history of activation in our community.
Right. And we want to avoid these super expensive, not avoid them, but have.
Oh, look who's here.
Is here,
What time is it?
$450 to have the perfect seat. Thanks, Billy. Yeah.
Let's see if Bobby has bags under his eyes.
Yeah.
That trip to Santa Cruz must have worn him out.
You
He
think so?
slept late today. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I will keep that.
Hey, Bobby. Did you forget to set your alarm?
Do we have audio?
Yes, you're live.
Okay.
All right.
I just had to turn your volume up. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. Bobby was having his weekend in our neck of the woods.
Yeah, and just as crazy it is, I don't know what's in retrograde or whatever, but we were planning to get together. And the first night we were going to get together, Bobby got caught up in some Bitcoin madness, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. We got a ton of stuff on Bitcoin, so save it for later, okay?
Yeah.
So he couldn't make it that night.
That was the Kumba Jazz Party we were just talking about with Sean Ahern.
Yeah.
And the connection with creating a sphere-like experience in San Francisco.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's very exciting.
that
And I
happened
wish
this
Sean
weekend.
much luck with that. So hopefully he's going to be bringing shows to the Wisdom that is moving from LA to San Francisco. And he also has gone off to Bali to try and create some kind of a unscrews.
Well, no, there is
community.
a 5-year project going on with the billionaires out there, I might add. It's at least one
Right.
that's been financing a village by the beach that's like a perfect Burning Man,
Yeah.
but permanent,
Right.
right? Not just a temporary 2-week deal.
So we're hoping for
So
great
he's there.
success. We send him off with all our blessings.
And he's going to give us a report probably next week.
when he's
out
back
there.
in a
We're gonna
couple
do
weeks, we'll get a download.
Exactly. At the very latest, if not
Right.
live from there.
But anyway, so that's when we were hoping to hook up with Bobby and
Because I'm sure he would have enjoyed talking to Sean, too.
Oh, man, would have taken it to the next level. But anyway, so those guys missed that, which we showed up for. And then we also had plans to possibly join them in Carmel after the
That's right.
aquarium yesterday.
The aquarium. How was the aquarium, Bobby?
I have some great video of the jellyfish. It's incredible. I've never been there.
Is that your first time? Really?
Good
Yeah,
for
yeah, it was the first
you.
time.
So
Yeah,
first-
I've been like a dozen times. I love it, but I was
Yeah.
busy.
Where did you spend most of your time at the aquarium?
Definitely the jellyfish. It's in a dark room. They glow, and some have electroluminescence, and there's so many varieties, and big ones, small ones, microscopic ones. It's incredible. Yeah.
Doesn't it just give you the most wonderful feeling about being alive on Earth and how diverse everything is and so beautiful?
Yeah, the oceans, less than 5% have been mapped out, or they don't even know what's down there. It's really incredible. Yeah. And the creatures that are down there. If it wasn't for the aquarium, you wouldn't imagine the diversity of jellyfish, in fact.
Now, these jellyfish, are they a lot of them in the Monterey Bay here? Are they local at all?
There was a woman that had a microscope, and they had these microscopic ones, and apparently they're close by. They have that rover submersible that is remotely controlled there.
Yeah,
And,
that's in Moss Landing, I believe, near the giant battery.
Yeah, and because it's in a protected bay there, so that people can't fish it and stuff, it's a very diverse ecosystem there. It has everything. It's right on the shelf of the Pacific Plate, and there's canyons there.
Yeah, that's right. They've got the underwater Grand Canyon right here.
Yeah.
And probably the jellies go way down there, especially if they're into bioluminescence. Because I understand the canyon is so deep here that it goes down to darkness, complete darkness at the bottom.
Yeah. You need that luminescence. Flashlight fish. There's all these fishes that
live
produce
down there.
luminescence.
Monterey Bay Canyon is home to diverse bioluminescent life forms, including dinoflagellates, Lingulodinium polyedra, Noctiluca scintillans, gelatinous zooplankton, jellyfish, siphonophores, ctenophores, deep-sea fish, anglerfish, lanternfish, cephalopods, strawberry squid, vampire squid, and crustaceans. krill, copepods. These organisms create stunning blue-green light displays, most visible during summer-fall blooms near the surface or in the canyon's depths year-round. The canyon's nutrient-rich waters, linked to Carmel's clarity, make it a prime spot for this phenomenon.
You know, if you want to add a little climate change perspective to your appreciation of the deep ocean, you should watch Johnny Harris's most recent post, because he has been doing some research about the very deep ocean. And in the Pacific, in the deep Pacific, there is a whole bunch of countries that are looking to mine some metal balls down there, and they're called nodules, right?
Johnny Harris's YouTube, entitled The $16 Trillion Race to Mine the Ocean, the emerging industry of deep-sea mining, specifically the extraction of polymetallic nodules, rich in metals needed for modern technology. The text explores the international legal framework governing the ocean floor, the environmental concerns surrounding deep-sea mining, and the controversial relationship between a tiny nation like Nauru and large corporations seeking to exploit these resources, raising questions about accountability and potential exploitation.
Yeah, but it's all being held back because of the treaties and the UN and trying to figure out what the rules are. Just to cut to the chase, the issue is that everybody who signed on to the United Nations Ocean Mining Treaty has been holding off on mining it because it's structured how much they're supposed to mine and how much they're supposed to give away to developing nations, et cetera, et cetera. And the U.S. hasn't actually signed on to that treaty. And so, therefore, there's a lot of concern that the U.S. is going to go in and scoop everybody just because we don't have to obey the treaty. And it's sort of outside the rule of law. And then if that happens, there's going to be mass chaos because then nobody's going to honor the treaty. So it's a real climate change hotspot for international law versus,
what it reminds me of?
The Wild West.
The Wild West reminds me of outer space rules and underwater rules. They're all kind of murky.
That's right.
And the boundaries haven't been defined, and lots of people want to define them.
Right. And hopefully goodness will win. I'm really in favor of a peaceful planet where people are honoring and respecting life and each other.
Here. Now, what's interesting is that there's massive amounts of metal just waiting to be picked up. It's like in little nodules. Just lying there by the
They've
billion.
been forming
they look
there.
like potatoes.
On the surface, right. On the
little
bottom.
potatoes, not little, but kind of
hand size. They're apple size.
Hand size. Yes, exactly.
And these are just natural formations from little flecks of metal finding their way to the bottom of the ocean and then magnetizing towards each other. And so there's these massive, several million acre field of metal nodules that have kind of been growing there for, tens of millions of years.
And it's easier than asteroid mining.
Yeah, but
at this point.
I think we need a new kind of climate understanding that we cannot harvest things from the earth faster than the earth is growing them. Like we have to have some kind of sustainability mindset.
Well, yeah, but who's going to adopt everything all at once? Every different country wants to create the rules, international territory especially. It's just a conflict of interest because people are coming from national interests, and national interests naturally pit each other against each other half the time.
Something you're voting for?
No, I'm saying there's got to be another layer to this where everyone's on the same page. And they're not just fighting, or it's not going to be like the Wild West, so they had to fight over the gold and the silver and who got there first. And,
there's a framing of the conversation that is very much.
What's a better model for creating the future than?
Yeah, it's part of the modern
conquest.
zeitgeist. Is how do we handle this now that we have artificial intelligence? Now that we have international treaties? Now that we have a kind of a one world planet?
We can create a better infrastructure, and that's where I think the AIs can help us. They can ask for what's the best win-win-win-win-win-win-win scenario where everyone comes out well
in a multipolar world with lots of leaders.
Multipolar is one of those other terms that it's being bantered about.
Well, that is one of the evolutionary aspects of world government right now.
Yes.
Is that we don't want a centralized one world government. We want a United States of the world. We want the world individual entities of nations to act in their own interest and to do something that is mutually honoring of the earth. So we all come together as humanity.
Yes, okay. And at the same time, we have a culture right now, which is mercantilely oriented, and the businessmen in charge means that what kind of deals can we make on a global scale with other people?
That's a yes and.
Yeah, well, the idea is that how does capitalism and business work hand in hand with a better planet? That's
maybe capitalism is the wrong word.
Well,
because
it is.
Maybe what we need is
deals.
wise,
It's all about deals.
enlightened self-interest and a multiple beneficiaries model.
All right, well, put that into the
get
AI.
out of the
Put that
Wild West.
Put on the AI.
We need to go towards the round table, right?
Yeah.
We need nobility and cooperation.
A roundtable multipolar approach could create a better world by fostering equity, reducing conflict, and promoting collective solutions to global challenges. It ensures no single power dictates terms, allowing diverse nations to contribute to a stable, sustainable, and culturally rich world. While challenges like coordination and power imbalances exist, reforming institutions, strengthening regions, and building trust can make this vision feasible. The result would be a world where cooperation trumps dominance and humanity's shared problems are tackled collaboratively.
So at the aquarium, they're kind of against mining the nodules there in the deep ocean.
Was there an exhibit?
Just leave
Did
them
they
there.
have an exhibit on the
No,
nodules?
no. This was at the end of a luminescence lecture that this woman in the little theater auditorium was talking about bioluminescence. And at the very end, she said something negative about mining the modules.
Oh, that's what reminded me, actually. Yeah, because there is
She's not
the
a miner.
resistance
Yes,
to
again.
the resistance to everybody mining these things just like crazy people is the environmental movement, especially the deep ocean scientists. So I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
In fact, probably it was your mention of the luminescence creatures that reminded me of that.
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple other ocean stories here. Do they have anything, for example, on this new piece on how there's a massive hidden ocean 400 miles beneath Earth's surface? Is there anything?
Oh, there's one under Mars too. I don't know if you've heard.
The
there's
underground
these massive oceans under Mars.
Oh my God!
But the one about the Earth we've heard about a couple years ago.
Yeah,
it's
true.
massive. It's
That's
bigger
true.
than all the oceans.
Well, it's in the news again this week.
Is it? Oh
Yeah.
wow.
It has more water in it than all the oceans on the surface,
Yeah.
for starters. And so they've been wondering, well, how is that possible? And it's because it's not liquid water, but it's stored in a rare mineral called ringwoodite. Ringwood, like Ringwood. Ringwoodite with an ITE at the end. Ringwoodite. And apparently it absorbs a massive amount of water.
It's the sponge? Are you
It's
saying
kind
that
of
water...
it's a mineral sponge of some sort. Ringwoodite, high pressure mineral, forms in the mantle, 250 to 410 miles down, and its ability to store water, what's crystal structured.
Ringwoodite stores water by incorporating hydroxyl O- groups into its spinel crystal structure, primarily through cation vacancies or substitutions. It can hold up to 2 to 3 weight% water, equivalent to vast amounts in the mantle's transition zone, 410 to 660 kilometers depth. This water is chemically bonded, influencing mantle dynamics, volcanism, and the global water cycle.
This is part of the whole Earth water cycle to include this. Well, yeah, I guess you'd have to include whatever is going underneath the surface of the planet is every bit as important than what's going on in the atmosphere. And the surface is far deeper and goes much further than the atmosphere. What do we do with this knowledge now?
Weren't you just reading me a thing this morning about the flat earthers and what they're doing with this knowledge? And
yeah.
They're kind of
by the way,
proving
that's a pet peeve of mine right now. Okay, folks, I think a lot of you folks are using AIs, right? Well, keep in mind that it's an improv actor. If you tell it, okay, I want you to be a deep mystic now and talk to me from a mystic's point of view on the nature of alchemy and the earth, it'll just start coming across talking like that in terms of being a mystic. Or if you tell it to be a flat earther, it will, and it will defend the world from a flat earth point of view.
It just goes to show you that facts don't necessarily always line up with theories.
Yeah, and if the AIs can take on different characters, like in a play, then people are figuring that out, and they're putting their characters on display on Instagram and YouTube, and they all sound like these wise sages coming across, and these are just AIs pretending to be whatever the prompt was.
Right, because one of the great things we can do with AIs is tell them to act like a mystic.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Tell them to act like some kind of well-known human archetype.
Yeah.
Right? And so a lot of these YouTubers that have trained their groks to act like a mystic.
Yeah, that's a pet peeve of mine. They do that. They don't tell you that that's what they're doing.
Right.
You know?
Also, people who talk about the accuracy of AI, it is in such a small percentage of believability. I mean, it's so easy for them to mislead you with great authority. They're kind of like 20% right, 80% guess.
Yeah. Man, so what else did you see? Did you go for that hike after that, Bobby? After the aquarium to
Point Lobos?
Yeah,
we went
Point Lobos,
down there, and that was really beautiful. And you're out on the cliffs and looking at the oceans. It's right below Carmel. It's very beautiful there.
Was it a clear day?
It's a clear, beautiful day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
And the water there is so blue. The ocean here, like in San Francisco, or I don't know, in Santa Cruz, but it's a little murky, but for some reason, it's like crystal clear down there near the Monterey Bay. And
I've often
Point
wondered about
Lobos.
that. Why is it so clear there?
I don't know. It reminded me of when I scuba dive in the Bahamas. It's very clear out there in the Atlantic, but there on the Pacific, even though there's a lot of waves happening, I guess there's a lot less sand that's being churned up, and that's why it's a lot clearer.
That's a good guess. Yeah.
It's a very blue water as opposed to kind of a greenish, murky water that you normally see in the ocean.
Well, let's see. Grok says it has a low sediment input.
That's probably it. Yeah.
Yeah, low sediment, and there's a cold water upwelling where deep, nutrient-rich, clearer water rises to the surface. So I guess it's colder there, but clearer.
Yeah, it's very clear. Yeah,
And the kelp forests filter the water. They trap sediments. Interesting. Right? And the ocean currents help there too. So that's a real Zen diagram. Yeah. Venn diagram.
Yeah.
Wow.
The Monterey Bay near the aquarium there is where a lot of people in California go for their checkout dive and scuba diving.
Because it's so clear. The water is so clear there.
There's kelp there. You got to be careful you don't get entangled in the kelp.
Yes.
Also.
Yeah, I had a friend who died that way.
Yeah. And it's one of the two spots that I felt like I came very close to dying. And
Did you get tangled in the kelp?
No. Well, what happened was I had gotten my NOW certification like 10 years earlier.
Yeah.
And I had done my checkout dive there in Monterey. And then my girlfriend at the time decided to get a PADI certification. And so I get into the water and I go with her and I realize I'm out of shape. I mean, I'm not what I was 15 years before. And so
Funny how that works, isn't it?
And for the uninitiated, PADI is the Professional Association of Diving Instructors. And they certify you when you get your scuba license.
Yes. We can continue this after the bottom of the hour if you want.
Well, let's do that. Okay, it is bottom of the hour. Let's bring in some of our local sponsors.
All righty.
And we'll see you folks on the other side.
Okay, stay tuned for a little news from the Santa Cruz Voice
News?
people.
I don't know about that, but
Well, I guess sponsorship isn't quite the same as news.
And here's the news from the sponsors.
That's what I meant. Okay, we'll be right back.
You need a clean, pleasant space to conduct business, but you don't want the burden of a long, expensive lease. Your solution is Satellite Co-working and Digital Media Studio on Soquel Avenue. Satellite offers private offices, meeting and conference rooms, even co-working by the hour, day, week, or month. Schedule a tour at satellitecoworking.com. Mention Santa Cruz Voice for 20% off your first reservation.
For about $1 a day, you can have all the major appliances and systems in your home guaranteed fixed or replaced. Jeff, a customer, wrote, "My air conditioner broke and I got a new one at no out-of-pocket cost." Call now. If the lines are busy, please call back.
Call the Home Warranty Hotline now at 800-528-1660. 800-528-1660. 800-528-1660.
About that first impression. Hi, this is Bettina McBee from Bettina's Buzz on SantaCruzVoice.com. And that first impression is my business card created by Dynamic Press. It is my favorite business card. It gets everybody's attention right away. If you want to make a good first impression, get your business cards and any printed media at Dynamic Press. And tell Angelo Bettina sent you. About that first impression. Hi, this is Bettina McBee from Bettina's Buzz on SantaCruzVoice.com. And that first impression is my business card created by Dynamic Press. It is my favorite business card. It gets everybody's attention right away. If you want to make a good first impression, get your business cards and any printed media at Dynamic Press. And tell Angelo Bettina sent you.
Okay, here we are.
We're back.
We're back, yeah.
Can I continue on where I was under the
absolutely.
water?
Oh, yeah,
Yes, you were under-
definitely.
Okay, where are we now?
Death-defying moment.
We are in Carmel, right? In the clear water off of Carmel.
Yes. I'm going backwards in time a little bit in the Monterey Bay.
Your near-death experience.
My near-death. The only other time I worried about dying was I was in Berkeley, and it was late night. And
in the chemistry lab?
Well, no, actually, I drove up on the street, and we were parked in front of my friend's apartment there in Berkeley.
Yeah.
And this young kid walks by, and he
pulls out a knife?
No, he pulls out this .44 Magnum pistol.
Well, that's a little bit more serious.
Yeah, he was serious.
Yeah.
And he kind of pointed it. We had the windows up. I had a Saab Turbo 900, and we had a sunroof, and so the sunroof was open. So the kid comes by, and my friend Jason's sitting in the passenger seat, and he goes by and he says, "I want your wallets." He points his gun through the glass window.
Polarity? Oh, you're
right through his toward his head, right?
Right.
My friend Jason had just taken a mace class. And
did he have his mace with him?
No, well, anyway.
Mace like a medieval weapon?
No, like the spray.
The spray. Oh, he took a self-defense class where he used mace.
Yeah,
okay.
You have to be licensed.
I have quite an imagination, don't I?
Yeah. So mace, you have to be licensed, and you have to take a class.
Oh, I didn't.
It's a little bit stronger than pepper spray that you buy in the drugstore.
Yeah, this is where we disable the attacker.
So anyway, what flashes across my mind is, okay,
what are you going to do? And you only have a split second to make that your mind up too, right?
Time slows down. There's this time
I was
dilation.
Say, that's
happens.
where relativity really kicks in.
There's a spaciousness in the immediacy. Is that what you're saying?
In the urgency.
And my friend Jason says, I just remember him. He says, "I don't have a wallet." And I'm going, oh my God, that's not what you're supposed to say.
No, you better say the right thing quick.
And all I could imagine was, his brain splattered across the windshield when he said that.
You saw that in that split second?
Yeah, because time slows down.
Yes, you have time for these things, for these little...
And then I heard him say, "But I do have this." He pulls out of his pocket something, and I had no idea what it was. And he sits up a little bit, and he peers up through the sunroof. And he takes his mace and he sprays the kid in the eyes with mace.
Wow.
Oh, so he did have his mace.
How clever.
He did have this.
Usually,
You think they taught him that in the class?
No, but
no, he came up with that misdirection all on his own, huh?
There's no contest between mace and a pistol,
except that
surprise.
Obviously, you're still here to tell the tale, so something must have worked.
Yeah, what happened? I mean, was he not aiming the pistol?
All of a sudden, I see this kid grab his face and start running down the street, and I said, "Jason, what was that?" And then he told me, "Oh, it was mace." And then he says, "Let's get out of here." And I said, "No problem." And I just turn on the gas, and I was out of there in a half second.
Oh my goodness, what a story! I love stories like that.
Oh yeah, well,
you survived. Yeah. The crazy person was disabled in a way that totally shocked him.
Yeah.
Oh man.
We transitioned from the near-death experience near Carmel to that because it's probably more emotionally traumatic for you to have this in Berkeley than what happened in Carmel. Am I right?
Right.
So that was the setup? That was a setup for what happened in Carmel?
It's an association.
Yes, exactly.
A setup. I'm being set up. What?
In Carmel, I'm trying to, not Carmel, but in Monterey Bay near the aquarium. That's where the checkout dives for all.
So that's where you were there for your checkout dive?
And it was for my girlfriend this time, like 15 years later after I'm down very low. It's about 30 feet in the water and there's these kelp beds, right? Mm-hmm. And you have to maneuver these kelp beds. And I'm looking at my oxygen level tank and I realized, I'm breathing a little heavier and I'm maybe between 30 and 60 feet down. So I'm down like 1 or 2 atmospheres. And I realized I'm going to run out of air if I don't come up pretty soon. Oh. And I was just having a good time going through the kelp beds. And I realized I'm starting to hyperventilate because I'm a little worried about my oxygen level.
Well, how is your nitrous level? I mean, don't you start having...
it takes 60 minutes at 60 feet that you get the bends. And you have to pop up immediately after 60 minutes at 60 feet. So I wasn't worried about the bends, which is nitrogen in your bloodstream. But what I was worried about was maybe my air tank, I was going to run out.
Nitrogen narcosis would happen when you start running low, you start getting high.
And you get the NOx,
Yeah, and you start offering your
it's laughing gas.
Exactly. You start offering your oxygen supply to the fish.
Yes.
Things like that.
So I start... I'm getting very tired down there and it's hard to move. And, you have all these weights on and the tank's very heavy. You're very buoyant in the water. You don't notice the weight. But I just remember that I had another flash. This is before the incident in Berkeley, but I had this flash like I could die down here just trying to chase my girlfriend, keep up with her,
That's right. You were checking your girlfriend out underwater,
that,
right?
I'm a guy and I can keep up with her. And it was like, no, this was not happening.
Yeah, was she younger than you?
Yeah, 10 years younger at least.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I start coming up. Believe me, when I got toward the surface and I was about maybe a couple 100 feet from the beach, it took all my energy to get up there. And then I had to swim toward the beach. And then the beach is kind of long and I had to crawl, literally take every ounce of energy I had to crawl off the beach because all of a sudden you notice the weight of the tanks and the 20-pound weights that you have and you're in a wetsuit.
So you were totally exhausted when you got there on the beach, huh?
I just collapsed on the beach.
Wow,
I thought,
that's true.
Man, I just narrowly missed dying under the ocean there.
How'd it go with the girlfriend after that?
Oh, she had no problem.
She had no problem. Oh, okay.
No, but I'm curious, like, what do these near-death experiences bring to your life? How were you different after that?
It kind of frees you afterwards that you're lucky to be here and you appreciate everything that's here, for sure. And I think it was fortunate. You have to have one of these other near-death experiences, and it was through mushrooms. The first time I took mushrooms.
Really? That's when you got the real insight?
The first time you took mushrooms?
These other ones, they're just like close to physical annihilation, but really mushrooms is when you know what death is like.
Well,
that's right.
Death warmed
the
over?
mushrooms are the real death experience.
Yeah. Well, that's what the New Age says, basically. You got to die many times if you want to be enlightened. And that's how you do it. Take those hallucinogens.
Well, I read Paul Stamets' book, Psilocybin Mushrooms and Their Allies. Mm-hmm. It was his first book on mushrooms. And in it, it said, if your mushrooms are older than like 6 months old,
they start getting more poisonous. Huh?
It actually produces either cyanide or strychnine. It's one toxic chemical. And for some reason,
does the chemical structure, like that 5-6 ring, whatever, change?
It's a benzene ring. Yes.
Yeah.
It's enough to give you a bad trip.
Yeah.
Typically. It won't kill you. Usually.
What happens? Does that benzene ring go away? What happens? It decays?
Well, I don't know what else is in the magic mushrooms, but apparently over time it does decay.
Something becomes toxic, huh?
But for some reason, a
lot of people think that death is a hallucinogenic trip.
I thought.
Yeah. But what happens, I was just convinced, and I was in a cold sweat by myself in my bed after 3 or 4 hours of tripping, and then I'm in my bed for like 5 hours. I thought, okay, I'm going to die here. And I said, well, I
You
was
accepted that?
kind of, I had felt like I had dealt with death as a younger person and understood it. But then I realized while I was on the mushrooms, no, I really hadn't thought this out completely. I wasn't at peace with it. I was in terror in these mushrooms for at least 5 hours, and I'm in a cold sweat. I'm going, okay, I'm really going to die. And then when my body, at the very end of the trip, my body turns into this, it starts glowing, and it turns into the white light. And I realized, oh, it's okay to die. I had to be at one
It's
with
like,
it.
welcome back.
And then
You don't need that old pesky body anymore.
it took me out of this terror into this glowing, warm, loving white light. And
Yeah, the
I
harmony
realized,
frequency
okay,
of universe.
it's all right to die.
Uh-huh.
It was all right to die. So at least I had that experience when I was underwater, so that
Didn't panic too much. You're like,
didn't.
maybe I'm going to a better place.
Yeah. Or when we were held up for our wallets, it's good to have those kind of experiences out of the way, that you have resolved this idea of death and that there is something afterwards. So.
Yeah.
You've learned the lessons from that experience.
Yes.
Well, it helps you get more out of being on this side of the door.
Yeah, you appreciate everything here, but you don't necessarily get so attached to it because there is something better on the other side.
Yeah.
Not to worry.
And this little mortality thing is precious. That's really the thing that makes greatness flourish from humans, is understanding the preciousness of this life that we create.
Well, and losing it. It's like FOMO for life is very strong.
Yeah, don't miss out, for sure.
But the idea is that once it's over, it's not the end.
Yeah, it's a cycle.
Yeah, it's a cycle to something else that your soul is yearning for.
Yeah. Well, it's so ironic that so many people who have the blessing of being incarnated in the body are sitting here spending all their quality time trying to figure out how to get back to the infinite, right? As if being in the body isn't enough. It's like, oh, now that I'm here, this isn't what I want. This was a big mistake. Take me back, infinite,
Wrong movie.
But,
Not.
that's just a classic example of they can never be satisfied. I think that the people who really add something to this giant art project of civilization realize that
never being
life
satisfied.
is precious. And
Was that
if you
greed?
use
Is
it
that-
motivationally, I guess it's okay. You got to keep going towards something to inspire yourself. But if you use it to be in denial of the value of what you already have and what you're experiencing,
appreciating the moment, seeing
then you're just in FOMO. You're just wasting your time.
Would you say that the moment is perfect?
Yes, I would from time to time when I feel that way.
Usually, but not always? Or always perfect?
You've been teaching me all about that, sweetheart.
Well, I'm just curious.
Anytime that I'm wondering if it's not perfect already, you remind me to tune into the perfection of the moment and have faith. So I really admire that spiritual practice.
Oh.
The Zen keeps us on track towards the sublime.
So for 10 points, Bobby, how perfect is now?
There's no better time than now.
Really? Not the past? Not any of those near-death experiences?
Yeah.
Not the future that you're imagining, where everything you do will add up to more than what you already can imagine?
What I realize as I get older is that every moment could be magical if you're just here to experience it, And it just brings to mind that it's a miracle that we're here. You just have to realize that it's miraculous. And then even if we're not here, it's going to be even more miraculous wherever else we go after this.
Yeah. I'm into returning to our identity as stewards of life, as people who are learning natural laws and nature's ways and the designs of the divine, and that we are receiving those in order to enhance the gift that we have been given by being alive and being embodied and being on a beautiful planet in an infinite universe.
Speaking of an infinite universe, did you know that the last 2 weeks of May, the Milky Way will be more visible than ever?
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Is it like getting a spotlight or something?
You'll see a vibrant band arching across the night sky over the next couple of weeks. More
Really?
visible than usual.
What kind of a band? Where is that coming from?
Because it's higher in the sky
Oh, okay.
and it's dark
Uh-huh.
for 2 reasons. And there's a 10-day stretch between the last quarter moon and the new moon.
Oh, so it's just the natural phenomenon of it being dark.
And it's high in the sky.
I like it. I like it. The Milky Way's noon, huh?
It'll be most visible in the middle latitudes
Uh-huh.
of the northern hemisphere, the continental U.S.
Oh, and it
Canada.
starts today, huh?
Yeah,
This is the
starts
10-day
tonight, yeah.
window. Oh, good.
That's why
Let's
I'm
go
going to
look.
bring the dwarf to the party tonight.
Ooh.
The dwarf, yes.
Wow.
Because it was trained in downtown Tokyo where light pollution gets in the way. And so it's got these algorithms to cancel out light pollution in cities.
Mm-hmm.
So I can take my telescope anywhere.
Sure.
Wow.
Knows
See if
how
I
to
can get it.
amplify the colors of the night sky.
Yeah, high in the sky. You can observe it by looking for the summer triangle. That's a shape formed by 3 bright stars.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
There at Future Peak, you should be able to.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
well, we
Yeah.
could do it here, but we're going to go hang out with friends, you know?
Yeah.
Oh,
Got to take
okay.
the dwarf with us.
You know, the people you
Yes.
hung out with yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come down again, Bobby, and we'll finally converge.
I'm planning to come down. Really? Yeah,
Really?
I have to
Tonight?
I have to see Murcha. I don't know
Yeah.
about tonight, but we'll see.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, if you
Let
come
me
down
know
tonight, you'll see
what's-
us too.
What's happening?
Hey, come on
What's
down. Party at Dave's.
Yeah, it's just
After 7.
Some of the folks will be leaving after today, and we want to catch them before they go. So
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Anyway, we don't need to go over our calendar with our audience.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
It's,
we'll talk.
talking
afterwards.
about
Yeah.
that later. Yeah. Even though this is kind of a personal podcast in some respects.
yeah, check out the
Yeah.
texts, man.
It could be
It's-
excellent galaxy viewing conditions. Because actually, you see, folks, this is actually the stuff we talk about even when we're with each other.
Yeah, that's true. We don't really think of this show the way a lot of people think of their shows. We do our best to keep up with really fascinating futuristic events and news, but it's really just our normal conversation about emerging reality.
Yes, like, did you know
It's
that?
our captain's log.
Did you know, for example, that CERN just turned lead into gold? Did you know that?
Oh, those crazy alchemists.
But it was
What were
like-
they thinking?
Well, what was depressing about it was that it then vanished.
Oh,
Instantly?
fool's
You're pretty
gold.
close to it. Yeah, it's kind of like
No.
sand flowing through your fingers when you thought you had something.
How did they even know they found it?
They measured gold formation from lead nuclei.
So they
Well,
pummeled
basically-
2 lead protons into each other,
Well,
and the
they get-
explosion created gold.
Well, you get lead, electromagnetic processes, lead going around and round, and you speed up the lead molecule almost to the speed of light. You get it going super fast, and you fire it like a gun. And then you have another one going in the opposite direction, and then it fires at the first one, so that billions of lead molecules hit billions of lead molecules. And some of them hit each other perfectly, and some of them turn to gold. Some of them turn to other weird stuff. But when you combine billions of molecules with billions of other molecules and fire them at each other, gold is being created along with a whole bunch of other stuff. But it doesn't last very long because it doesn't create stable molecules.
So gold has an atomic weight of 79,
Yeah.
and lead, guess what atomic weight lead has?
3 electrons difference, I think, between the two.
think it's 80. Mercury happens to be
Electrons,
80.
yeah,
So
sure.
Mercury is right next to it, which is why most of the old alchemists from the Middle Ages were interested in mercury to gold.
They were chemistry. They were all chemistry based, and I think our science has found that you can't use chemistry for turning lead into gold, but you have to use physics.
Physics, okay.
Yeah, you have to get it.
So
which they didn't know back then.
titanium
They didn't know how
has an
to,
atomic weight of 81,
They didn't know how to bombard a lead molecule.
and lead
turn
has
it
an
into gold.
atomic weight of 82.
It's got 82
Equal
protons.
electrons
82 protons versus 79
protons,
difference, and
Protons.
protons and electrons
Yeah.
difference. Yeah.
Thus, you need to remove 3 protons from a lead nucleus to transform it into gold. 3 protons. And how do you
they
remove
think they did it.
3 protons?
So how is it that this removal of 3 protons only lasted for a few nanoseconds?
It becomes unstable because there's an unstable amount of neutrons. The weights of all these periodic table elements are based on the protons, but you can change and create isotopes by changing the number or adding more neutrons to that.
No, but my point, Bobby, is that the way that they measured it is that it's the way that they measure shrapnel after an explosion. Like they only have one imprint of what happened. And that one imprint tells them that the gold looked like this in that nanosecond. And so then for them to say, well, we only had gold for a few nanoseconds, they must have had, what they did is they had a few different imprints, and that gold looked like that for a few of those imprints. But the whole way that they're even talking about it is like cray-cray, because there's no stable element that can be proven from a snapshot like that. It's shards after an explosion that's being measured with a photo process.
So, well, you don't believe in this process, this future?
I'm just saying that it's clickbait, that this
Yeah,
whole article is clickbait.
Gold. I don't know, man. That's pretty serious. I mean, especially even since we're going to be talking about Bitcoin later. You want to talk about
talking about clickbait. Yeah,
Jeez.
That's some clickbait
Gold
everybody's
is
going to
at
get
least
interested in.
history
Okay.
to it.
But this is CERN, and what they're using is they're using AI, and they're looking at the trails of what's left over the collision, right?
Yeah.
And so they're saying, well, it looks like, yes, this element, because of the properties, the way it flies off after the collision.
Because of what color it is when we recorded it in that split second when we measured the results of the collision.
Well, let's see. Lead has several stable isotopes, and gold has just one stable isotope, Au-197.
Yeah.
And to convert a lead-208, 82 protons, 126 neutrons, to gold-197, 79 protons and 118 neutrons, you need to lose 3 protons and 8 neutrons.
Yeah.
8,
I'm
lose 3.
so much clearer now.
Oh, yes, because you glaze over names. Electron capture alone reduces protons from not neutrons sufficiently, so additional processes like alpha decay, losing 2 protons and 2 neutrons, or neutron emission.
Let's just say this is not going to go into our Federal Reserve. We're not going to have any of this stuff in Fort Knox. It's not going to help us with our debt. It's very expensive, and it's already gone.
What about the alien
disappeared?
Tech? What about the alien tech?
What happened?
I mean, they probably know how to do that.
Oh, so
Yeah.
near death. Let's start talking to aliens. Aliens, can you help us get more gold?
I don't want to have to die to get the alien tech. Then what good is it? Because there'd probably be different rules after you die, and it doesn't matter anyway about this stuff.
Cold fusion is the answer.
Oh, let's
Here
just
and now, in this
sidestep.
world? Yeah,
Let's
cold
not
fusion.
waste our time with gold. That's so medieval.
How about
No.
about room temperature?
Cold fusion.
Room temperature fusion.
Yeah,
What about
I
that?
think that where if you can fuse 2 elements that are half the size of gold, and you fuse them, the cold fusion together, and it doesn't create a nuclear bomb at the same time.
Oh, is this something you're proposing, or is this something you know has
This
happened?
is what I'm proposing.
Beyond chemistry here. This
Oh,
is
okay.
is more
So let's see. We're
physics
looking
plus
for
chemistry.
something that's going to be at half
Cold
of
fusion.
79.
Well, that's
What's
an
half of
ongoing.
79?
That's an ongoing quest, right? That's been going on for generations. The cold fusion story,
Yeah.
and that's the holy grail.
I don't
right?
know.
If
You might have better luck with something that's half the size of Mercury, because the Mercury is an even number. It's 80.
It's probably easier to mine the potatoes at the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, probably.
You're right, but they have more nickel and I don't know, cadmium, a
and
little
look,
bit of lithium, I think.
And look, how
Anyway,
long?
stay tuned.
There is a
We're
lot of
heading out
gold
to a
down there,
break.
too.
Be back.
And how long would gold be worth anything if you can make all you want anyway? It'll quickly lose its value. So
You heard it here on Future Now.
All right.
This is a fucking great show, you guys.
That was great. We'll be back.
Here's where it all begins.
Welcome back, folks. Welcome back to the Future Now show. We got Sun a.k.a. Mrs. Future, in the studio here.
Hello, everybody.
Got myself, Al Lundell, a.k.a. Dr. Future, and we've got Bobby Wilder, our...
When you say this show is wilder than usual.
You're keeping up pretty good, Bobby. That's good. Yeah. That's good. Helps to have the links page.
Yeah.
We're going to have Charles Osmond soon on, not this week. As he
Poor
was
Charles.
Sick. Yeah,
oh,
poor
my
guy.
gosh. He was going to be our guest a couple weeks ago. And
Yeah.
he
That's right.
got in a
Yeah.
terrible accident.
He almost burned
Love
off
to you,
part of his
Charles.
face, sadly,
Wow.
in a sudden stove fire.
Bless your heart, honey.
And he got sent to Kaiser, and it's pretty serious. He kind of looked like it was Halloween already.
Yeah, he's going to
Sad,
have to
yeah.
wear a Darth Vader mask now to
well.
parties and stuff.
Yeah, it's lucky most of our audience is audio. Anyway, they patched him up. Burns are no fun.
Oh,
Yeah.
God, poor baby.
He's in recovery mode, and people have been offering all kinds of help with healing advice and organic meds, and he appreciates it all. So, Bobby, take that as a cue. If anything Charles could use as a burn victim, I'm sure he's open to it.
Yeah. That is very interesting. Usually they do these skin grafts, but other than that, there's a lot of
Stem
things you can
cells.
take.
Stem cells
Yeah.
must play a role in this. Creams
Exactly.
and
Stem
such healing
cells.
creams.
I'll think about that.
Yeah, think about that. That'd be good. And then we'll bring Charles on, and he can tell us all about what's going on in his mind. Now, Charles is a very interesting fellow. We've known him for a quarter of a century. He used to be a regular on Art Bell, much more with art than with George Norrie.
Yeah.
Seems like George doesn't have the attention for his great
Well,
thoughts.
they're different persons. Yeah, George is a crooner, and Art is more of an experimentalist, scientist type.
Yeah.
You know, so
And George has really, it seems
Yeah.
like he's been bored for the last bunch of times I've tuned in. So
Yeah, he's
I
a
think the
different
magic is
mentality.
gone with him.
Well, that's a matter of opinion. But yeah, I would agree. It's a matter of opinion.
That's two. What do you think, Bobby?
Well, George or Art?
I listened to every Art Bell show when he was on.
Me
Yeah.
too.
And then
I never got tired of Art Bell. We are actually podcasters thanks to Art Bell because he made it so
Inspired
much
us,
fun.
and in our young age.
Yeah.
Then I did meet George Norrie a couple times, but he didn't have the charisma that Art actually had.
Well,
But
I would
No.
say
No, he was a
understanding.
good peacemaker.
you
I
know.
mean, when he first stepped in, he did a pretty good job of taking over the reins. But then I think something went out of him. I think he got divorced. And I think when he had to go to court to make sure that Art never did another show, what a
Right, yeah.
loser thing to do to your
Exactly.
hero. So as far as
exactly.
I'm concerned, the guy's a
Yeah.
total loser.
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
I would. But then he never liked me either. So what
Yeah,
to do?
that's right. If he liked you, that'd be a different story.
Yeah, him and Buzz Aldrin are in the
Yeah,
same
Buzz.
boat. They
Oh,
just
my
do not
God.
appreciate me.
These egos, man. It's like all about egos and getting in the way of real relationships.
Are you saying my ego's in the way of getting in these?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh well,
I
maybe.
think so. I mean, but egos, maybe egos are kind of useful. Maybe they're kind of like electromagnetic fields around the planet, preventing us from getting hurt by some kind of big storm.
That's an interesting idea.
Like for example, in the solar system, NASA has been warning of huge solar flares coming out soon.
Oh yeah, we're in Solar
Yeah.
Max.
Yeah, we're solar max. It's
Danger,
11
danger.
year- the 11-year solar cycle. We're at
Yeah.
max. So anything can happen now.
last week I noticed that it was there was an X-class flare, which is at the highest level of X, and X 2.7, which is pretty high. And I noticed that there were some radio blackouts in the Pacific, South Pacific.
That's right. Yeah, it's been high frequency radio signals were disrupted for about 10 minutes, according to space weather forecasters at NOAA.
So ocean vessels were
National Ocean.
floating blind.
GPS was
Flares
off,
and solar eruptions. Yeah.
Yeah.
The good part about it is that if you're in a northern climate, you'll see these great auroras everywhere.
Right.
And it'll just make the atmosphere look so beautiful at night.
Seems to me there was a related article in my email this morning from Space Weather about the fact that some little tiny part of a solar coronal mass projection hit us unexpectedly recently. And in the last few days, there was this weird anomalous streak of light from the magnetosphere that is creating some research. Like it's kind of a mystery. People don't quite know what it is.
Well, the current situation is that there are 5 major sunspot activity regions, and that sunspot AR 4087 could lead to a supercharged aurora as it lines up with our Earth, getting intense.
Right.
So
Yeah, because the
that's
more energy in
those
these
specifics,
auroras, you get a full range of different colors. We're used to thinking of them as kind of green. That's kind of normal magnetosphere in the northern climes. But they can become pink, and they can even go brighter than pink, So some people say that there was like a white flash.
A white flash.
I think that's what it was. It looked like it in the picture, but I don't know if that was just an illustration.
Sometimes you get these greenish blue ones, but the red ones are very common. You're right.
I got a solar filter for my dwarf. Maybe I'll bring that.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Let's do it.
Watch the sun.
Sure. Well, we'll be there in time for sunset, right?
We're testing out, for those who don't know, we're testing out one of the new smart telescopes that are out there now. And they are much smaller and cheaper than regular telescopes, and you don't need to have to learn where all the stars are for it to work properly. You can get great shots of the sun or any star system without having to take much time to set it up. The cool thing about it is that it's super small and portable. You can carry it. A regular book bag can fit in it. I put my drone and it in one case now.
Yeah.
Very tiny.
Yeah.
Also interesting on this solar thing is that, are we prepared for this? I've heard everything from disruptions for 5 to 10 minutes, which actually have happened, to what if we get a Carrington event from 1859 scale where everything goes down, like all the solar systems.
Well, when you look at the animations showing what could happen in a solar event, it's like the whole magnetosphere gets pushed from this protective bubble
around
between us and the sun all the way to the backside of the Earth, so that there's nothing between us and the sun, and we're just naked.
Head for the hills. No, actually, in this case, you'd head for the underground.
I wonder how long it lasts.
To study that, there was a multi-agency exercise last year to see what we would do in the event of a major solar event. Several U.S. agencies took part in it.
Oh, really?
I have a piece on that.
Sort of getting ready for our simulated solar events?
Well, yeah, they simulated the worst possible scenarios, and what would we do? What would we do? Of course, we didn't know exactly what to do. It was the first time we did an actual simulation of this in real time. It was held about a year ago.
So this was a test for all of these government agencies if they lost their power due to a coronal mass ejection?
Yeah, the NOAA, Department of Homeland Security, Space Weather Operations Research and Mitigation Task Force, SWARM.
FEMA in Denver
was involved.
All right, so all these organizations were supposed to come up with their emergency plan.
4 modules involving a series of solar events that would be adverse to the systems on Earth and what we would do about it. Like if we lose GPS, if we have radio communications blackout, or we have power outages, or everyone's being exposed to a lot of radiation from space. How does that affect people even? Never mind the satellites. What do you do? What do you do in those circumstances?
Any answers?
You find a cave.
I better have your cave ready before the event, I think. Although you do have a little bit of warning, right? Doesn't it take some amount of time to get from the sun to here that you'd kind of know what to expect?
It depends on how it's ejected, but anywhere from several hours. First of all, what is it, 8 minutes? If it's light, right?
Light comes at 8 minutes. So
8 minutes.
It's going to be
happens at the sun
more than 8 minutes.
Okay. So the satellite, the unfortunate thing is these solar satellites, they get their information directly from the sun. And if it's just this light information, then it's going to immediately send that as radio waves, which are traveling at the same speed. So we get the information here at the same time.
All right. Information gets here first before we're all dead. So we have at least 8 minutes to get to a cave.
But that's just
hollow out our mountain
information.
Here.
But when we talk about
it takes more than 8 minutes.
The neutrons and the protons, that's a whole different, that's solar mass ejecta material. And that can take anywhere from hours to days, depending on what speed those particles are going to hit the Earth. And that's when you have a little bit of time to find out.
But if they do hit us, we're not copper wires. Do they make us hot? Is it hotter than usual, or is it like an X-ray? Is it more likely to mess up our chromosomes? I mean, what happens when we get direct sunshine without a magnetosphere in between?
You probably can't see it, but it might affect how much our solar panels are working at that moment.
Is it going to make it better or worse?
Oh, better. It's
Oh,
gotta be better.
oh,
Better?
good.
So
So
solar
it'll
panels?
charge our batteries extra
'cause
fast.
It's extra energy from the sun. Fuck yeah.
Great.
Yeah, definitely.
Hey, let's waste some power.
Those solar panels are they're going to be fried.
Fried,
for sure.
Oh,
no,
no.
no.
So it
They're
is
fried.
heat? Or
Oh,
is
wait.
it going to be photovoltaic frying?
Well, they
Would
are
it fry
protons and
photo- I
neutrons
don't
that
know.
hit the panel, which normally don't hit the panel. We're
Yeah,
talking
well,
about
yeah.
light rays normally.
Uh-huh.
The Carrington event, even if you have transmission wires like telegraph
Yeah, they didn't have
wires,
photovoltaics then.
No, I thought that just the electric current got so amped up that the wires burned.
All right, I'm gonna ask
yeah,
you
they
know?
melted.
The Carrington event of 1859, a massive geomagnetic storm, caused fires at telegraph stations due to the surge of electricity induced in telegraph wires by the solar storm. The event was widespread, causing global disruptions, including brilliant auroras and telegraph system failures.
Can you imagine the delicate satellites? They're not.
Oh, so maybe
designed-
we better stay under some protective roofing because there'll be satellites falling out of the sky?
If you live in a big city, you just go into, let's say, the BART station and it's underground. That's all you do. You just go, or you go to a building and you go to a couple floors down where they have the parking or something, or a big parking lot with multiple floors. You just want to be under some cement that's a couple inches thick that holds the cars up.
I don't know
So-
if this is a good reason to move to the city there, Bobby.
Well, no, it
Don't
depends
know.
on when it happens. You know,
I'm
if you
going
got
to
a
stay
little
out
warning,
here with the trees, you know?
I would go to a parking lot, a multi-layer parking lot, and just drive the car into
You are so urban.
the bottom floor of the parking lot, and you'll be safe.
Bobby is correct. Buildings, especially those with underground infrastructure, would offer more protection than being outdoors or in a building with minimal shielding.
If you had time.
Yeah, that would
Yeah.
take quite a bit of time. And plus, there'll probably be a traffic jam. So,
Well,
no,
no,
that is
people
not my
wouldn't-
escape route.
People wouldn't know what to do in that case. But I'm
No,
telling
that's
you.
why you have to be prepared, right? That you at least have a
yeah,
have a
yeah, you
sense
have
of
to
what
have a
That's
plan.
why we're talking about
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah,
What's
you have to
solar
have a plan.
maximum.
We have this tunnel here. It's a trolley tunnel that goes through the mountain here in San Francisco, West Portal.
Oh,
And so I would,
that's a good
if-
name.
yeah, so I would just
Where
head
do you want to
down.
be for your next solar mass ejection event? In the portal, in the West
Yeah.
Portal.
But if you have a multi-story house and you have a cement floor level, some cement above you, just go into that bottom garage level wherever your house is.
Protect yourself, right?
Or if you have a wine
right.
cave, just go into the wine cave.
yeah, just out of the direct sun.
Yeah.
I'm looking on the other side of the coin is, okay, if we kind of know how a solar flare is going to affect the Earth, is there any materials or technologies that we could use for collecting solar eruption energy?
Now
I
you're
asked
talking.
Rock that. I asked that, and he says,
Like
that-
our solar panels.
yeah, right. The
that are
solar
gonna
panels,
burn.
I think, as Bobby would say, they'd probably be fried. They weren't. They're not designed for solar flare type effect, because the problem is with solar energy is that there's a lot of frequencies hitting us at once.
Right. Yeah,
We're,
so it's kind of a whole bunch of rando radiation.
Yeah,
stuff
including
that we're
gamma rays.
Not
and-
prepared for.
Yeah.
What good can come out of it, Al? Did Grok have any
first of all,
ideas
yeah,
for
they
you?
said there's no single material that's ideal for collecting energy from solar eruptions.
No materials or devices currently exist to collect energy from a Carrington-level solar event like a solar panel collects sunlight. Conductive materials like copper could theoretically capture induced currents, but the energy is too chaotic, destructive, and diffuse to harness practically. Protection, not collection, is the focus now.
Not a good way to collect energy.
I wonder if it's good for your psychic powers.
My
light.
psychic powers.
Yeah.
After all the radio transmissions and the internet is down and your car doesn't start
Yeah.
and all that, yes, I think people would become more
If your phone
psychic
stops
after-
working, you better hope your psychic
You're-
powers
you're more,
keep working.
You're more telepathic at
Right.
that point. Yeah,
Okay. No more interference.
that's right. Yeah.
Well, in the big study that they worked at this, what was their takeaway? They found that the most challenging aspects to space weather is the forecasting, because in our forecasting, at least as it currently stands, we don't have much of an ability to predict how the coronal mass ejection will actually affect the Earth.
We
don't
need
really
to
know.
experience a few more before we can
Okay, here's
predict the
thing.
future
Here's
ones.
the thing. 30 minutes. we can predict pretty accurately what it is maybe 30 minutes before it hits. And that's when the magnetic field orientation of the cloud of the particles becomes apparent to our sensors.
Okay.
So what we need is better sensors, and we'll have more preparedness because we'll understand more about, I guess it's the precursors. You're looking at the surface of the sun and you're seeing them about to erupt, and you kind of can calculate where they're going to erupt. 30 minutes is pretty good. I mean, because they erupt, it takes a couple of days, doesn't it? The particles are going much slower than the speed of light from there. So we have 30 minutes, which means that we don't have our spectrographic technology accurate enough until the streams are fairly close to the Earth already. Mm-hmm. If we could predict it from the sun itself, that would be better. That would give us a couple of days warning.
I wonder what we do get. Okay, like we say that the sun is a hydrogen producer and that this big wave is coming out of some kind of a hydrogen to helium explosion. Mm-hmm. And then it goes out into the vacuum of space. And what hits us is electromagnetic. There must be some heat involved. There's definitely some momentum, some pressure, some density involved. There must be some kind of frequencies. So those things that are going to hit us are the things that are usually just hitting the magnetosphere and charging it up.
Yeah. What happens is a lot of those particles, that's what causes these auroras. And that's why you see them in northern and southern latitudes, is because we have this magnetosphere and those particles are charged either positive or negative. And it's usually the protons, and they're positively charged and they head toward the poles. But the interesting thing about why the sun is activated is because there's these magnetic poles, and it's shifting every 11 years, and it shifts from north to south. And we're not sure, are they positive or negatively charged solar mass ejected?
Exactly. Sean Dahl at the Space Weather Prediction Center says, quote, "We never know what's actually going to be, what the CME is composed of, and what to make of it until it gets just 1 million miles from Earth, where it's only 15 to 45 minutes away."
Okay. All right. So it could be anything.
So that's where our sensors can take us now. 15 to 25. You know what it sounds like? It's a similar range to when we were kids and we had to deal with duck and cover.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, one of the things you found out about earlier, we were wondering, one of the things that does happen is that the atmosphere actually grows. It actually gets larger, so much so that in the 2007 event, apparently there were some dislodged satellites from their orbits. And it's because of atmospheric expansion, just the gas outside of the planet got
That's a
bigger.
fascinating process, Mm-hmm. I still feel safer about a coronal mass ejection than a nuclear blast. It's better to
Well, that's
cover
thought.
Cover your ass than kiss your ass goodbye. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So are they saying we have 30 minutes? We have more time to...
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad you said
30
that.
minutes? No, it's time. 2 minutes
we're
before
3
the
minutes
30
away
minute.
from our next break.
That's right.
Now that you mentioned it, we haven't
minutes.
talked. We have so much other stuff we haven't covered yet. We haven't started the Bitcoin craze. We
No,
haven't
the Bitcoin
started
thing.
some
Call-ins.
of the other
We
stuff.
have call-ins at 831-265-5050.
Yeah.
If you want to join the likes of us in a conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the other thing is about solar is that we're at the solar maximum this month. This is your takeaway for this. Keep an eye on the sun and stories about the sun and that sort of thing, because it's never going to get more exciting than now. And especially if you have something weird that happens to your phone, or if you're listening to the radio, heaven forbid, then if there's something weird that happens, you might hear it there. The other thing that I wonder about, and it's kind of started to another story, which we have, I'll try to cover in 2 minutes, is that it might affect animal behavior, the cycle. Yeah. So that's another thing. So watch animal behavior around you, see if you notice anything different.
Yes, animal behavior can be affected by solar flares, particularly during periods of disrupted Earth's magnetic field. Animals that rely on Earth's magnetic field for navigation, such as migratory birds, bees, and some whales and dolphins, may experience disorientation and altered migratory patterns.
Like
Maybe your dog is starting to dig in the ground,
Yeah.
and it's not looking for an old bone or something.
Right.
It's trying to duck and cover.
Well, exactly. The reptiles, instead of basking in the sun, the snakes will crawl in their holes.
Space weather, if you get that app, it'll tell you when the solar flares are happening.
We got to go to our break. We'll be right back. Spaceweather.com.
It's time now to repair or replace your roof. Hi, folks. Warren Knox here of Knox Roofing. Well, we install leak-proof and fireproof roofs. Roofs that look nice with a lot of choices of colors and styles. We only install proven products with warranties unmatched by anybody. Financing is always available, and we have discounts for veterans and seniors. Do business with Knox Roofing, and you'll also receive a free Knox Garden Box. The number to call again is 831-461-0634. Thanks, folks.
Charlie Hong Kong is here to nourish you with our healthy noodle and rice bowls, abundant with local organic produce grown in nutrient-dense soil, as well as soups, sandwiches, salads, and our special ginger lemonade. All are welcome to enjoy our patio or to go. Order in person or online, corner of Soquel and Seabright. Charlie Hong Kong, nourishing our community one bowl at a time.
For ag and industrial real estate, call Chuck Allen. Chuck Allen is a lifelong resident of the Pajaro Valley, a friend of everybody, and has closed so many real estate transactions, the Wall Street Journal and Keller Williams both list him as one of the nation's top producers. So for ag and industrial real estate, call the top realtor, Chuck Allen, at chuckallenproperties.com. chuckallenproperties.com.
Treehouse dispenses not only the finest cannabis products, but information to those who want to know how to use cannabis for maximum benefit. Hello, I'm Jenna. If you would like to know how best to use cannabis, ask your friends and neighbors at Treehouse Dispensary, 3651 Soquel Drive. If you're 21 plus with a valid ID, no appointment is necessary and the information is free. Order online at ourtreehouse.io and pick up at our drive-thru. See you soon.
Okay, welcome back to the show. We're talking about solar flares for the last half hour. You know, it's been 40 years since the ozone layer. Remember the ozone layer?
What do you mean? Since the ozone layer? It's
the
been there a
hole.
lot longer than 40 years, Al.
Excuse me. I meant the hole in the ozone layer.
Since
40
our
years.
discovery
40
of
years,
the
yeah.
hole in the ozone layer.
Yeah, since we created it.
Yeah, we did. We
yeah.
created it by measuring the ozone and then noticing it has seasonal
Yeah.
differences and
Seasonal.
then thinking about how much we're ruining it with pollution.
The dramatic
like
thinning of the thing.
chlorofluorocarbons.
Thinning of the ozone layer, like a thinning of the hair on
Yeah.
one's head.
Yeah, but apparently it's thicker at certain times of the year and it's thinner at certain times of the year because of the natural cycles of nature. Something about the seasons.
I think of it more like sunscreen myself.
You do?
Yeah.
The Earth's
ozone layer is kinda
sunscreen.
like sunscreen, yeah. It blocks the UV rays from reaching the surface. Protects us from DNA damage and cataracts and all kinds of weird stuff that comes from space.
Only if we're under it.
Space weather, which isn't always friendly to biology, put it that way. So it was a big discovery. Right? It was one of the first big environmental things everybody rallied around.
Yeah,
And,
after saving the whales.
40 years later, what's the status of it today? Is it recovering? There's a big piece on that in the BBC and Yahoo News. And still, the ozone hole forms over the Antarctic every spring. At its deepest and largest at the end of September. And we still have ozone holes after 50 years. It shows signs of recovery, a healing process, but a full recovery might not be for another 30, 40 years. It's slow, but it's recovering.
Good news.
40 years later.
Yay. Ozone hole smaller. Tune in.
Smaller, yes.
30 years from now. We'll give you a progress report.
That's right.
That's our future news.
We do have a little report on Bitcoin. There's something called the Golden Cross that's been seen.
Oh, yes. Well,
Golden Cross. And
based on...
Well,
on,
let me play this. you know.
Okay.
All right.
Never mind.
I asked Larry and Mary. I asked Larry and Mary to give us a little download on that. I'm going to put them on for a couple of minutes, and then we can riff off of that and take it into what we know. I know Bobby knows a lot about Bitcoin. You know a lot about Bitcoin. We get Larry and Mary give us our deep dive for a few minutes, and then we'll do our own version of that.
Okay,
here we go.
great.
Here we go.
Today, we're zoning in on something getting a lot of buzz in the Bitcoin space, the Golden Cross.
That's right.
We've looked at some interesting analysis focusing on Bitcoin's recent moves and, well, what this specific chart pattern might mean.
Yep.
Our goal today is pretty straightforward. Really get under the hood of what a Golden Cross actually is and what it might signal for Bitcoin's health, and everything connected to it.
Exactly. We're aiming to cut through some of the noise. It's more than just lines on a chart, right? It can give clues about momentum shifts.
And that matters for anyone keeping an eye on Bitcoin or like the companies involved.
For sure.
Okay, so let's dive right in. This Golden Cross, in simple terms, what are we talking about?
Okay, think of it like this. It's a pattern on a price chart. It happens when a shorter term trend line, specifically the 50-day average price.
50 days. Okay.
Right, the 50-day simple moving average, or SMA. When that line crosses above the longer term one, the 200-day SMA.
Yeah, okay, 50 over 200.
Exactly, and it's often seen as a sign that, the recent upward push is getting stronger compared to the longer view. Maybe a bullish shift is coming.
Got it. So if that's like a potential green light, is there a red light, an opposite signal?
There is, yeah. It's called the death cross.
Yeah, sounds ominous.
It does, doesn't it? That's when the 50-day SMA drops below the 200-day SMA, so the reverse.
Yeah.
And yeah, often seen as bearish, maybe signaling a downtrend.
It says.
But interestingly, one of the analyses we looked at, Benjamin Cowan's video, he points out something kind of counterintuitive about death crosses for Bitcoin.
Oh, how so? Death doesn't sound like good news.
Well, what's interesting is his analysis suggests that, historically anyway, Bitcoin death crosses have sometimes actually happened near local price bottoms.
Really? Near the low point.
Yeah, think about it. For a death cross to even happen, the price has probably already fallen quite a bit, right? So sometimes it marks a point where maybe the selling pressure is easing off and things might start to recover. He mentioned examples, 2023, 2024, 2025, even going back to 2021, 2022, 2019. It's a pattern he's seen.
Huh. So a bearish signal that might actually mean the worst is over, potentially?
That's important.
Mm.
Okay, back to now.
Okay, put it on pause.
Back to now.
Back to now.
Future now.
Back to us, okay?
Okay.
Here we are.
So gang, comments?
I think focusing on the Golden Cross and this idea of some technical anomaly that drives Bitcoin investors is cool, but I don't think it's really that informative. And I think that there's more interesting things going on, especially in terms of the U.S. government.
Okay, I'll hold that thought on the U.S. government.
Okay.
Bobby, what about you and the Golden Cross and the Death Cross? Where do you stand on that? Are those terms?
Yeah, I agree with Sun. It's more what's happening politically than just watching these movements over 50-day or 200 days.
Okay, yeah, so
averages.
that's just one, that's a cycle that people are tracking and may or may not have truth to it. Okay, but what about the psychological component? Is when Bitcoin's going up like it is now, it's over $100,000 a Bitcoin now?
Right now it's at 106.
Does this mean that there's less trust in the existing system?
High,
I mean, like,
right? That's gone up a bit.
It's 100 and what now? 106?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, does that mean there's less trust in the dollar when
it
alternatives
actually
go up?
means there's more trust in the dollar.
Really? So Bitcoin goes up when the dollar goes up?
Well, it depends why, but in this case, yes, that's my understanding of what it means. There's
it's the U.S. dollar.
Yeah, that a lot of Bitcoin watchers are very bullish on Bitcoin right now, and it has to do with some financial data that's coming out about the U.S. government and about U.S. policy in the next little while, like between now and June 1st. I tried to find out what that might be.
Bobby, do you have a clue on that? Have you heard any major shift in the market?
Yeah, what I've been following and what this craziness I've had with my hardware Bitcoin wallet.
Oh, that's right. That's what delayed you.
Because I haven't opened it in like 4 or 5 years. And
me too. I did that.
Really?
In fact, you inspired me. Yeah.
So
Anyway.
accreditation is at stake here? I mean, or they didn't recognize you?
First of all, I had to put in all my codes and my seed keys, and it took like an hour to recover.
Get in there.
Get in there, yeah. And then because I updated the firmware and things, when I first opened it, there was nothing there, and it got me worried.
Oh, no.
Okay, maybe,
Where'd my Bitcoin go?
Where's my Bitcoin?
What
I thought
did
it was secure
do?
in this wallet.
Yeah.
But finally, I just added the altcoins that I had in that wallet. I didn't have very much to begin with, but it was just
you
some
added a few and
stellar lumens.
The other one showed up when you did that, or what?
Yeah, at first it didn't show up, so I was really confused, and I was going, "What happened here?
Yeah,
what did
sure.
I do wrong?
Where did my money go?
Yeah, exactly. It's not money; it's
where did my
cryptocurrency. But anyway,
currency go?
Finally, I had to add the coin that I was looking for, which were stellar lumens, right?
Mhm.
And then they showed up, and I felt better after that. So,
Yeah.
but that's why I didn't come down and see you guys, because I was like
I know.
panicking.
Did the old ones show up at all? I mean, did the older coins?
Yes,
you
yes,
found
they
that
did.
did. So
Finally, so
finally,
now I'm
right? So it
happy.
just took a while, and it took
Yeah.
putting new ones
And it's
in
not
to
very
refresh
much,
it.
but
Okay, but still, that's good to know. Maybe it might apply to any amount that you might have.
Yeah.
I asked a question to Grok
Yes.
about,
Yes.
I said, what upcoming policy shifts in U.S. strategic reserve developments or Fed rate decisions could be pivotal in the value of Bitcoin? And so this is just a little bit of a skeleton of what people who are trading Bitcoin are thinking about. And I just want to remind everybody that there was a big Bitcoin conference during the campaign of the last presidential election, and we had Trump and RFK Jr. both speak at a major Bitcoin conference and let people know that they were very pro-Bitcoin. So there was U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve developments happened because the establishment of the U.S. Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, the SBR, via executive order in March 2025 made a historic shift in U.S. crypto policy. And they're still talking about how that's going to affect the value of Bitcoin, but it definitely affects the value of the U.S. dollar, because a lot of people are expecting there to be a big showdown between now and June 1st about whether we have confidence in the U.S. economy or whether it's been ruined, because we have a giant multi-trillion-dollar interest payment that's due to our creditors, and that could signify a problem with China or a problem with our international policy. And because Trump is willing to allow Bitcoin to be used for the Federal Reserve, people feel like that bodes well for Bitcoin becoming more valuable right now.
More accepted.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, The Street has an article out there today called Bitcoin 2025 to host Trump-backed Code and Country Day.
What's that?
Code and Country
Code and Country Day. Okay, so see, you found something new. What's that?
Code and Country Day is part of America's 250th celebration.
When's that happening?
Next year.
Oh, that's next year.
Though. It starts this year, though. 250th element this year. 30,000
it's part of our
attendees.
250th celebration. So we're going to get a new currency for our 250-year birthday as a country, huh?
Yeah, 250, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
30,000 people for this event. Hardcore Bitcoin crypto enjoyers.
Is this the one in Las Vegas? Which one is this? There's one at the end of May in Las Vegas. I was thinking about going.
Really? When? When is it?
It's the 30th and 31st. It's the last couple
so
days.
that could be why some of these Bitcoin prognosticators like Tika Tiari, what's his name? Something like that.
Right, yes.
Tika
I know
Tiari.
who you're talking about. Yeah.
No, but he's basically saying like, oh, there's going to be a big thing that nobody's expecting that's going to make people go crazy about Bitcoin. That's probably what it is. It's probably that conference.
So
it's in Las Vegas?
Yeah, it's in Las Vegas.
Bitcoin 2025?
Yes.
So it's called?
Yes.
Okay.
And,
so I can imagine them making an announcement that the U.S. Federal Reserve is going to start selling U.S. treasuries in Bitcoin-denominated assets or something like that.
Well, what's really happening is what's going through the Senate right now.
Yeah, Las Vegas.
So,
and Vance is talking at it. J.D. Vance.
J.D. Vance is going to talk, but actually Robert Malone is going to talk. I got an email from him saying he's going to talk. I go, why is he going to talk about it? You know?
Whoa!
So,
now it sounds very spooky.
But
he's the doctor or biochemist that was all about mRNA technology. And the dangers
All of a
it.
sudden, he was a patent holder on the mRNA technology, who was the unsung hero and didn't get the Nobel Prize, but he did get COVID.
He was big into the controversy on COVID.
Yeah, well, he's a celebrity. Okay, so is he just chasing Bitcoin fame, or has he got an agenda, or what?
I don't know.
So tell me what you know about him.
What I know about him, he's a brilliant scientist. He actually grew up in Santa Barbara and then went to UC Davis, got his undergraduate degree there, and then he went to UC San Diego and got his PhD in microbiology. His mentor told him to study mRNA technology. So he's the first guy in the world to actually discover how to use mRNA technology to change your cells to produce different kinds of proteins.
Right. He was much more cautious about it than a lot of the doctors.
Yeah, because he's saying what the vaccine was comprised of, they're using a lot of different ways to change it changes not only the way the DNA is converted to RNA, but it's actually putting malware in your computer. Your cells are like little computers, and they can produce certain kinds of proteins from this mRNA.
Yeah, but what does this have to do with Bitcoin? Like, why is he talking at a Bitcoin convention?
Yeah, well, that's another issue.
It's a lateral connection.
I don't know what he's going to talk about.
Why would he talk about Bitcoin? Bitcoin is like mRNA.
Well, if we're talking about the U.S. debt and the currency situation, there is a pharma angle that a lot of people aren't aware of that I thought was pretty interesting, and I think it was covered by the No Agenda guys, and it has to do with the fact that in the big, beautiful bill, there is a provision for individual health consumers to be able to order products direct from other countries at the most favored nation price, which means that these really expensive things that Medicare has to spend a lot of money on is going to be available to people individually if they just buy direct, and they'll be able to get things at a fraction of the price that we're currently having to get. And that is in itself going to reduce the cost of medical coverage in this country for the government. So they're doing everything they can to change the game in terms of how the debt is accumulating and getting paid, for what it's worth.
May 27th to 29th, Venetian Conference Center, Las Vegas.
Oh, yeah. That's
where we just were. Darn, we missed it by 2 weeks.
So what was interesting is yesterday, what passed in the Senate was a closure bill. Anyway, it's a bill that they're talking about what's called the Genius Act. And there's another bill which is called the Stablecoin Act, which is in the Congress, but it's much more stricter. And this Genius Act is actually less strenuous. You have to test in order to create your stablecoin. They're all about stablecoins, and stablecoins are different than Bitcoin. $1 American is equal to one stablecoin dollar. And they're pegged to each other, and they don't change in price very much, but they're used as a platform from leaving from the fiat world to enter into the crypto world. So what's happening is 6 years from now, what you think of a bank is going to be very different. You're going to have your bank in your phone or in your crypto wallet or somewhere else, and there won't be
my implant.
There won't be a necessary place for ledger. Like, who holds the ledger right now? Your bank holds the ledger. You trust your bank to hold the ledger.
It's known as a central banking institution.
Right. And so what we're entering is a whole different area of economics where everything is going to be digital and people have control of their own wealth.
So we're going for distributed control.
Yeah, distribute. And you don't need a bank or a banker or another institution
because
to tell
the
you how
AI
much
will
money.
take over for them.
Well, those institutions will do other things. So the people in them will do other things to take what their knowledge is to a better level.
So what was passed yesterday in the Senate was a proposal to go ahead and start refining this Genius Act, which allows for rules and regulations for stablecoin. And that allows for Bitcoin to be of more value in the future. So that's why everybody right now is trying to buy as much Bitcoin as possible, because after this bill is passed, the price of Bitcoin should double, triple.
So
some
it
people
means
say 10x by the end of the year.
Basically a US dollar, its value, instead of it being from the price of gold or instead of it being from the current collection of assets that give it its value, we're going to allow the dollar to be traded for, what did you say? You said from fiat into digital. So we're going to allow the dollar to become digital currency. And so the digital currency is going to have a new currency rally that's going to make it become much more valuable.
Yeah, so what you're hearing are this Bitcoin reserve. We have a gold reserve, and the dollar is tied to the amount of gold that some countries have. But we're off that. We're on a fiat system. But there is some connections there. But now we're connecting our wealth to cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, as opposed to tying it to gold or tying it to fiat currency.
Yeah.
So that's what's happening. And so that's why countries are talking about having a Bitcoin reserve. There are 2 states that already have Bitcoin reserves. They've already passed legislations on those 2 states. And they
Pennsylvania
are
is one of them. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. New Hampshire and Arizona. But unfortunately, California is not one. But the city of New York is proposing to have their Bitcoin reserve. Sweden and Ireland, I think, are planning to have a Bitcoin reserve. They're trying to pass legislation for that.
And of course, El Salvador already recognizes Bitcoin as a currency.
That's right, yeah. And so they're way ahead of us in El Salvador. The whole world is changing economically here. And the thing is this, it's good to get your head around it. It took me years to understand this. I mean, even though I took electrical engineering and also computer sciences and understand programming, and I took economics, it took me a while to wrap my head around what is this cryptocurrency talking about. So it's a good time to learn right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it looks like the Czech Republic is planning to allocate 5% of its strategic reserves to Bitcoin by 2027.
Yeah.
And now Trump has expressed a strong interest in establishing a Bitcoin reserve.
Right. Well, he said at that conference that he wants the U.S. to be the lead player in the Bitcoin digital currency world.
Yeah. Bitcoin was created here in the United States. And then 5 or 6 years ago, Xi Jinping outlawed the mining of Bitcoin in China. And that was good for us because they were collecting, because of the miners, they were collecting a lot of Bitcoin. Yeah. And now all of that was recently sold. Like Binance sold like $350 billion worth of Bitcoin to the United States from their exchange in China. So China's kind of poor in Bitcoin. A few years back, they were very rich in Bitcoin.
Gotcha.
So,
And it looks like the Genius Act is going to give us a more clear, consistent framework for payment of stable coins.
Yeah. So they'll establish how it gets created.
And they're pegged to some value of fiat currency.
Oh, with a state and federal partnership. So that's kind of like giving state banks the ability to weigh in rather than just be dictated to by a central bank. By a central federal.
I guess a lot of details. Also, you got to deal with money laundering issues, and they have to have common understanding how that works. And
this is going to be fascinating. So I think that one of the things about the digitization of money has been whether we do it all at once or whether we do it a little bit at a time incrementally. Yeah. And I would say this bodes for the incremental model. And I've heard some people say that what's going to happen in the future of money is that we're going to have all these different kinds of currencies to the point where people will just be using barter almost. It'll become so normal because people will be accepting so many different forms of currency that
decentralized,
you'll just stop using ones that aren't that valuable and use ones that are more valuable.
And if the computer can make it easy to use any of them, why not? The one becomes your phone or your app that allows you to use anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is a great approach.
Just before we go, I just wanted to give you a scan. It's interesting. I saw in the headlines about Bitcoin today. Bloomberg is predicting 300,000 in one of their beta articles, not to be outdone. Right. The Street, Wall Street, says it could hit 600K by October. Arthur Hayes is saying $1 million before Trump leaves office.
Yes. That's probably will happen, at least before 4 years. People are predicting 1 million. It could go to 1 million by the end of this year. We don't know.
It's that unpredictable.
Yeah. Any time is a good time to take a look at Bitcoin and try to maybe put a portion of your assets into it. Just think about it.
Think about it now.
Yeah, if you want them to double, basically, now's a good time. And beyond that, you have no idea.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been a really great show, you guys.
It's our last
a lot of fun stuff.
Yeah. I didn't even talk about that new hidden source of energy that was been discovered.
What is it?
The next week. We'll save it for next week.
Oh, what a tease.
Enough power for the Earth for 170,000 years.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
really.
Oh, who has it? Where is it?
Next week.
Okay.
You'll find out next week, okay?
Well, there you go, people.
All right.
I hope you had a lot of fun this week.
Yeah, thank you for all that Bitcoin download. Appreciate it. And too bad we couldn't turn lead into gold this week. Maybe next week.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can turn it into Bitcoin now.
Yeah, Bitcoin. Yeah, lead into Bitcoin. Now, there you go. Now we're talking. Okay. Well, thank you, Bobby, for being part of the show today. It's really great to have you and your insights, and you, Mrs. Future, as well. And we'll see you next week. Enjoy that day. It's just getting outside today. Beautiful out there.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye for now.
Another beautiful
Bye-bye.
day in the future. Have a great future now, everybody. Bye.